Mr. Minister. Thank you, dear friend Amihai Chikli, for this conference, which is really an important moment that has become regular and has to be systematic. Thank you very much, everybody. The monstrous Islamic terrorist action on the 7th of October brought days of compassion for the Jewish victims, but immediately years of anti-Semitic passion against Israel. Western societies have been deeply shaken by the images of the past 2 years, where the streets of their cities have been invaded and controlled, and these concepts are important, by huge crowds of highly mobilized, militant anti-Semites and Israel haters. Suddenly we saw our very crude reality. As we have always seen, the ridiculous excuse of anti-Zionism is not the anti-Semitism was radically refuted by the actions of socialist, Islamist, and far too many governments. They began by asking Israel not to defend itself and soon passed to demanding Palestine from the river to the sea, included as Spanish members of the Spanish government, which means genocide. They are now calling for reprisals against Jews for being Jews. Again, in the whole West, boycott to Jews, Kauf nicht bei Deutschen, which is an enormous, don't buy at Jews businesses. That was a slogan in the 30s in Germany. It has become a slogan now with the boycott to Israel products. The composition of this crowd was the same in New York, in Chicago, in Rome, Madrid, London, Berlin, and Brussels. Native leftist parties and forces joined by Muslim communities. In many cities, these two forces chanted slogans against Israel, against the US, against fascism, and against the West as a whole. Frequently, one could see Hezbollah and Hamas flags on slogans of the Muslim Brotherhood alongside young and white students carrying LGTB flags. Everybody here knows that the latter group would not survive a day in a Muslim Brotherhood-controlled neighborhood in the Middle East. For many in the West, this alliance of socialism and Islamism under the umbrella of anti-Semitism appears to be a new phenomenon. In fact, it has a long story and a strong common ground. One does not even have to go to the way back to the alliance between the Grand Mufti and the National Socialists, the Nazi movement in Germany and elsewhere in the 30s. This century began with a very active mobilization of this socialist Islamist alliance. The main actors were the Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez, both close allies of the Spanish socialists. Their close cooperation later expanded to Evo Morales in Bolivia, Correa in Ecuador, Kirchner in Argentina, and of course Cuba, was the reason for the deep penetration of Iran and Hezbollah into the Ibero-American subcontinent. Prior to this, Iran had already engaged in terrorist activities, specifically in the two major tragic bombings of the Israeli embassy and the AMIA in Buenos Aires. However, these activities rapidly expanded into drug trafficking and money laundering in the whole South American continent, and with the drug dealing to Europe and to the United States. Before that, Ilich Ramirez Sanchez, the notorious terrorist known as Carlos the Jackal, wrote about the necessary strategic anti-imperialist alliance between socialism and Islamism. Later, Spanish communists such as Jorge Berstrique, Juan Carlos Monedero, and Pablo Iglesias, who became vice president in the government of Pedro Sanchez, elaborated this concept. A few words are necessary regarding the disgrace in my own country, where socialists like Rodríguez Zapatero, who was the former prime minister socialist, who founded the alliance of civilizations with Iran and Turkey, and now Pedro Sanchez, having made anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, anti-Western pro-Islamist policies almost a matter of state, the raison d'être. Today, Pedro Sanchez, a leader of government which is mired in immense corruption, is the most aggressive enemy of Israel in Europe, but he's also the enemy of the Spanish nation. He operates in alliance with separatists, organized crime from the Venezuelan dictatorship, Islamists from Iran, and the entire Foro de Sao Paulo, where leftist, communist, and terrorist groups mingle with the drug cartels. And the huge network of NGOs, which have expanded this kind of anti-Jewish and anti-Israel activity all over the world. Only Keir Starmer in Britain could be seen as reaching a similar level of active hostility in Europe towards his own people and permanent complicity with an Islamic invasion in Europe, as we are witnessing, an invasion that is becoming every day more assertive and aggressive. The primary reason why the Western left seeks this alliance with the greatest enemies of Israel is their ideology, what they call their anti-imperialist ideology and anti-Western phobia. But at the core of this colossal attempt to delegitimize Israel is the left need to attack any nation that defends itself, its territory and its identity. The destruction of the nation, the family, the traditions, the values and virtues is the main goal of today's international globalist woke left, which is increasingly radicalized due to the complete failure of the traditional left in every practical sense. They are against nation, against family, against religion, against freedom, against the traditions, as I said, values, and they are against Israel because Israel represents it. Israel serves as an example for the West in resistance, resilience, and the fight for national survival and a fortified identity. That is why the enemies of freedom and truth hate the Jewish people and Israel so intensely. And that is why we patriots who fight in the West to reconquer sovereignty and defend our identity, values, virtues, and civilization see Israel as an example. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.